A man put less than $2,000 into an ordinary retirement account, and it grew into $5 billion. Not a hedge fund, not an offshore trust, not some company in a country you can't spell. The same dull account your bank will open for you this afternoon. For nothing. And the part that should bother you is this: he won't pay a single dollar of tax on any of it. Not on the growth, not on the way out. Not ever. That isn't a mistake in the law. That's the law doing precisely what it was written to do. Most people file that account somewhere between a will and a smoke alarm. It isn't that. It's a machine, and hardly anybody runs it like one. Give me 10 minutes, and I'll show you what he dropped in there, why the taxman's hand stops at the glass, and the second man, who pulled off nearly the same trick on $22,000 a year. Because the uncomfortable bit isn't that a billionaire found this. It's that they built it for you first. So what does a man like that actually drop into a middle-class savings box? Wind it back to 1999. He wasn't famous yet. He wasn't rich yet either. And that matters far more than it sounds, because these accounts come with an income ceiling written into them. Earn above the line and the front door shuts in your face. He was under the line because he hadn't made it yet. Read that twice. It's one of the only savings tools in America that gets taken away from you the more successful you become. So the window where you're allowed to use it is usually the exact window where you feel like you've got nothing worth putting in it. His limit that year was $2,000. Not his limit because he was clever. That was everybody's limit. The teacher, the plumber, the guy who fixed your gutters. $2,000, take it or leave it. So what did he do with his? He didn't buy a fund. He didn't buy a bond. He used it to buy founders' shares in the company he was busy starting, and those shares were priced at 1/10 of a penny each. Sit with that. He wasn't putting money into the box. He was putting an asset into the box at the exact moment it was worth almost nothing. The company was PayPal. Of course it was. At the end of that year, the account was worth about as much as a used motorbike. 12 months later, that number stopped looking like a retirement account at all. End of the following year, the account held $3.8 million. By 2008, it was worth $870 million. By 2019, it held $5 billion. Now the number's the loud part, but can you see what never happened on the way up? He never paid tax when a share went up. He never paid tax when he sold one inside that box and bought something else with the proceeds. He never paid tax on a dividend landing in it. Not once, at any rung of that ladder. Do the same thing in a normal brokerage account, and almost every one of those moves is a taxable event. You sell, you owe. You take a dividend, you owe. Every step up the ladder, somebody's hand comes out. Inside the box, nothing. The hand comes out and hits glass. That's the whole product, not the investing, the glass. So why can't he be reached in there? Because of the deal you make at the door. You put money in that's already been taxed. Your paycheck, after the government has taken its cut. No deduction, no reward for the deposit. You pay full price on the way in. Then the lid closes. And after that, the growth isn't taxed, the dividends aren't taxed, the buying and selling inside isn't taxed, and when you finally take the whole lot out in retirement, that isn't taxed either. One toll booth at the entrance, then an open road for the rest of your life. That deal got written in 1997, and the accounts opened for business the January after. It's named after the senator from Delaware who pushed it. Here's the part that ought to be funny and isn't. He didn't build it for founders. He built it for regular earners. That's why it's got an income ceiling bolted to it in the first place, to keep high earners out. It is, on paper, a middle-class product, which makes the middle class the one group that mostly leaves the box empty. And I mean empty. Want to know what the typical one of these accounts is actually holding? About $39,000. That's the average. Same law, same lid, same open road. And the gap between that and the founder's box isn't a gap in the rules. Everybody in this story got handed the identical piece of paper. So if the tool is the same, what separates them? Two things. And only two. What you put in, and how long you leave it there. But before you go copying our founder exactly, you need the part these stories usually skip. He bought shares in his own company at a price he had a hand in setting, at 1/10 of a penny each. Tax scholars have been arguing about that ever since. Was 1/10 of a penny genuinely what those shares were worth that morning? Or was it a way of pushing far more than $2,000 of value through a $2,000 door? Nobody has ever ruled on it. What I can tell you is the rule that stands between you and the same move. Your account isn't allowed to buy into a company you run, or that you own a big slice of, or where you're an officer, and the penalty isn't a fine. Cross that line, and the law can treat the entire account as though you emptied it that year. The lid comes off, retrospectively, on all of it. So the downside isn't a slap, it's the whole box. So let's be straight, because I'd rather be useful than exciting. If the lesson here were put your startup in the box, that's not a lesson. That's a door with a lock on it, and a man who walked through before the lock was fitted. Which raises the only question that actually matters to you. Does this thing only work if you're already a founder? No, and I can prove it, because there's a second account, and the man who built it was earning $22,000 a year. 1984. Ordinary job at a chemicals company. Ordinary salary, about $22,000. He did two boring things. He put in the maximum his plan allowed, every year, whatever it happened to be, and he took every cent of the match his employer would hand him, which is the only free money in this entire story. When he left that job 5 years later, he had a 5-figure balance. Respectable, not a headline. Then he did one thing, over and over, for about 30 years. He bought stocks, publicly traded stocks, companies you could have looked up on the same screen, the same day, at the same price he paid. By the end of 2018, his retirement accounts held $264 million. He said so himself. In writing, he put it in publicly available securities, the kind anybody can buy. No founders' shares, no private deals at a tenth of a penny, no locked door. There is one move of his worth stealing, though. For most of those years, his money sat in the older kind of account, the one where the tax waits for you at the exit instead of the entrance. In 2012, he moved the whole thing across into the tax-free kind, and to do that, he had to settle up early. He wrote a tax bill with 8 figures in it, voluntarily, years before he had to. Why on earth would anyone do that? Because he'd worked out that paying the toll once, now on what the account is worth today, beats paying it later on whatever it grows into. He was buying the lid. And that switch is available to you too, at your scale, on whatever's sitting in your old account right now. And then he said something I didn't expect. He said that although he'd been an enormous beneficiary of it, he doesn't personally think the tax shield his account gave him is good policy, and he'd support limiting it above a certain size. The man who built one of the biggest boxes in the country thinks the box is too good. His own advice, when asked, was 3 things. Start early, take the match, stay in stocks, and for people who don't fancy picking companies for 30 years, which is almost everybody, he pointed at index funds and left it there. Which brings us to the only genuinely urgent thing in this whole story. 2 dates. The first is April 2027. That's when our founder can begin pulling $5 billion out of that account without owing a dollar of federal income tax on it. That's months away. The second is July of this year. 2 lawmakers introduced a bill to stop accounts ever getting that big again. Forced withdrawals once a balance passes $10 million. No fresh money in above that line. It's been introduced, that's all. It isn't the rule today, and bills like it have been floated and buried before. But look at what the argument is actually about. Is anyone disputing that the box works? No, nobody in that room thinks it doesn't work. The only question on the table is whether the biggest ones ought to be allowed to keep swelling. Meanwhile, here's the scale of the thing. At the end of 2024, a couple of hundred people were sitting on $85 billion inside these accounts. And your allowance this year, $7,500. That's it. That's the whole door. And it's the same door they walked through. Now here's the loss nobody ever feels, because it makes no sound at all. If you don't use this year's allowance, you don't get to use it later. It doesn't stack. It doesn't roll forward. On the 31st of December, it simply expires, and a year of untaxed growing goes with it. Every 12 months you wait. One of those years falls off the end of your life. That's the real price of waiting, and it never appears on a statement. So where does all that leave you? 4 things, and none of them are clever. Open one, your bank, a broker, whoever. The whole thing takes an afternoon. Feed it before you feed a regular investing account, because the ordinary one gets taxed at every step, and this one gets taxed once. Take the whole match at work, every year. That's a separate box from this one, but most workplace plans now offer the same lid on it. And the match is the only money in this entire story that nobody had to earn. And start now rather than later, because the one ingredient neither of those men could buy with any amount of money was time. The founder needed 20 years. The analyst needed 30. Now the honest limit, and I'd be a liar to skip it. The box doesn't choose your investments, and it won't make you rich. It has no opinion about what you put in it. All it does is stop the hand. But that's the thing worth understanding. The billionaire didn't outsmart the system. He read the one part of it that has your name on it too. 2 men, 1 box each, and neither of them owes a penny on what's inside. There's a third box. It's been sitting there since 1998, and the lid still works.